Sitting inside a sample house, drinking some bitter, hot tea from some bean grown in a far-off land across the trackless sea, I stared down at a slice of bread on a simple wooden plate. There was mould on it, just a little, in the top right corner. I saw other patrons wolfing down their bits of toasted spice bread. They couldn't tell it was stale and rotten thanks to all the spices on it. Those rich, delicious spices. But I pushed the bread across the little table away from me, disgusted. I got a refill of the bean tea, didn't mention the bread, tipped a coin to the server, got up with my cup and left. You see, you leave your cup when you buy a drink in Athkatla, which is why they hand you a coin when you put your empty cup on the serving counter as you leave. They do call it the City of Coin for very good reason. Coins flow back and forth in the bustling streets. Nobody does anything for free. I was not far from the home of one of my relatives, and my belly was warmed by the dark drink I sipped. I couldn't help but feel a little queasy at the thought that I almost took a bite out of that bread. Considering all the things I've seen, the monsters I've almost been killed by, you wouldn't think something like bread mould would bother me so much. But then, you've never met an Alkilith, and you live your life blissfully unaware of what I consider to be the most horrific and evil demon of the endless abyss. Of course, I haven't met that many actual demons. I make it a point to get as far away from anything truly demonic as soon as I know for sure that it's not just something else being called a demon. You know demons when you encounter them. They leave a mark on you. One you will wish for the rest of your days you didn't have. A mark on your soul. A spot of filth that you can never rid yourself of. As I walked down a wide cobbled street under the heat of one of the city's great storm lanterns, trying to keep my wits about me and my closed hand on my coin pouch, the memory of my encounter with an Alkilith haunted my mind. Hello, my name is AJ Pickett. I make videos about the lore of Dungeons & Dragons, including lots of monster ecology videos. Today we're going to delve deeply into the ecology of the Alkilith and just how insidious these demons are. So grab yourself a tasty beverage. We're about to get deeply nerdy. I often talk about the danger of demons and the corrupting nature of demonic energy. You'll hear me refer to demons as though they were a bit like twisted elementals. They came from another multiverse, summoned through the nightmares of a supremely powerful god, twisted through the far realm of Theros broken sanity. Few of the original Oberth demons were powerful enough to make it through that torment intact in either body or mind. Very few. Most of the living spirits of demon kind came pouring into the elemental planes of the Dungeons & Dragons multiverse. They were like screaming, insane, tormented tsunamis of foreign elemental power. Where previously there was earth, fire, water, and air, now there was also transformation, rot, corruption, and pure chaotic evil spreading like a wildfire through the very foundation of reality. The early Abyss was extremely virulent. It tore the barriers between dimensions apart with a terrible hunger. It was a baffling disaster that the forces of law and order in the multiverse struggled to even understand, let alone even manage to slow its inexorable growth. We may never know how many dimensions, how many planes and demiplanes were sundered, corrupted, and added to the twisted nightmare layers of the newly forming abyss. But I can tell you with absolute certainty, most of the floating corpses of dead gods in the astral plane appeared during this era. It seemed that reality as it was would soon be gone, replaced with something alien and vile. Eventually it was the Oberths themselves that crippled the rampant growth of the Abyss, with the Queen of Chaos when she betrayed and struck down Obox-Ob, the very heart of the Abyss, and soon after found a way to impose some regularity and order on the demons, churning out an army of different, recognizable types of demon we now call the Tanari. This great divide is a festering wound among demons that is never healed, and it makes it more understandable when I say that all the Tanari find the Alkilith demons to be vile, revolting, and hateful things they are forced to deal with. The reason for this is fairly deep in the psychology and physiology of the majority of demons, which I'll get to in just a moment. In its natural form, an Alkilith has the same sort of body mass as a medium-sized humanoid, but that mass is an amorphous blob of phosphorescent green, virulently toxic, corrosive slime that constantly forms a hard, leathery skin which then cracks and oozes before hardening again, with dark, often red glowing eyes popping out of these weeping fissures and often submerging again, fully mobile within the demon's roiling insides. Fully amorphous, they can squeeze their entire body through openings only 1 inch wide and can form their body to fit into any crevice or shape. While they most often operate at medium size, there's no real limit on how large they can grow, with rumours of Alkilith the size of gelatinous lakes in the deep reaches of the abyss. The daunting environments of these most ancient and devastated realms are the home turf of the Alkiliths and their master Obox Ob, but they are commonly used by demon lords to go on assignments to the most hazardous regions of the multiverse. One look at the listings for these demons in the 5th edition sourcebook titled Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, and you can see why. They have advantage on all saving throws against spells and any other magical effects. They have plus 10 on their Constitution saving throws, plus 8 on Dexterity saving throws. They are totally immune to all poisons. They cannot be charmed or frightened. They take half damage from any acid, cold, fire, lightning, or non-magical physical damage, and have no special vulnerabilities to speak of. They have a natural armor class of 17, and the medium-sized common form they are found in has 15 d8 plus 90, or between 105 and 210, with an average of 157 hit points. And that's if you even know they're there. They not only move at 40 feet per round with extreme dexterity of 19, they are plus 8 on all stealth checks, and when motionless they look exactly the same as any ordinary sewer, dungeon or cave slime or fungus. Plus, don't forget they can easily slip into any very narrow cracks to hide in broken rock or between loose bricks and flagstones. They're not generally the most intellectual of creatures, with an average intelligence of only 6, but this just results in them using fairly predictable and straightforward tactics without much variation. They tend to make very good use of their physical and psychic corruption. In combat, they lash out with up to 3 tentacle attacks, which have a very impressive 15-foot reach. Their super dexterity provides plus 8 to hit one target for 4d6 plus 4 acid damage. However, they are also corrupting the minds of their victims in what appears to be a little quirk to distract opponents, but is more insidious than it first appears. This ability is called Foment Madness. Any creature that isn't a demon that starts its turn within 30 feet of the Alkilith must succeed on a DC 18 Wisdom saving throw, where it hears a faint buzzing in its head for a moment and has disadvantage on its next attack roll, saving throw, or ability check. If the saving throw against Foment Madness fails by 5 or more, the creature is instead subjected to the Confusion spell for 1 minute. No concentration check is required by the Alkilith for this. While under the effect of that confusion, the creature is immune to Foment Madness. Now this in itself is a little confusing, but let me clarify that the Alkilith is doing this telepathically, but the thing's thoughts are so alien it just causes other minds to go a little haywire. And take note that this is a constant effect that saving throws confer no immunity to. But also note that the effect stacks on itself. Once the victim hears the buzzing, they still need to make a saving throw against it the next round, but will have disadvantage on the save, which means they are more likely to roll badly and suffer the full effect of confusion for 1 minute. And nowhere in the monster listing does it say that they get to make saving throws at the start or end of their turn against that confusion. It's up to you how you run the confusion spell effect. And what is the effect of the confusion spell? An affected target can't take reactions and must roll a d10 at the start of each of its turns to determine its behavior for that turn. It may use all its movement in a random direction and take no other action. It may simply stop and take no actions. It may use its action to make a melee attack against a random determined creature within its reach and otherwise do nothing else. Or it may get lucky and move and act normally for that round. If you're feeling kind, give the player characters a DC 18 Wisdom saving throw at the end of each of their turns, because otherwise this is going to carry on for 6 rounds, at which point, if they're still within 30 feet of the Alkilith, they need to keep making saving throws against the Foment Madness power. As you can imagine, a character with a low wisdom score and saving throw is not going to fare well against these demons, and may be a greater danger to their own allies. Now, I did mention that the Master of Alkilith is Obox Ob, while the monster lore in Mordenkainen's tome states that they are the spawn of the demon lord Dewblex. These statements are both true. Alkilith spring from the cast-off bits of Dewblex's hideous, shuddering body. They gradually become self-aware and set out on their own way into the material plane. There are more than a few coincidental parallels between Obox Ob and the Alkilith. First, Obox Ob's very presence erodes sanity and poisons the mind. His movements cause a horrid droning sound that any who have actually survived an encounter will instantly recognize from the telepathic noise the Alkilith emit. The efforts of Obox Ob are keenly focused on the prime material plane, where he seeks to grow in power, create countless breaches in the planet barriers, and eventually free the mad god Theros. as the two share the end goal of destroying reality and remaking the multiverse. Don't forget, all demons owe their very existence to the unbelievably powerful mind of Theros and his power to manifest his will, even the unconscious will of his worst nightmares, which were completely released by the Shard of Ultimate Evil. The imprisonment of Theros within his own dream realm was the only way all the other powers could save their reality, but while the Shard of Ultimate Evil is still active, the Abyss continues to grow, eating away at reality like a cancer. There is a way to contain it. I mentioned this in my video on the mighty stellar dragons. The most powerful of their kind, the Mikado, has a huge horn from which an artifact cage could theoretically be constructed, which would completely contain the Shard of Ultimate Evil, much like the prison of Theros located somewhere in the deep ethereal plane. It's locked by some 333 gems scattered far and wide across the multiverse. Were these gems of wisdom and pearls of knowledge also sourced from the stellar dragons? We don't know, but it seems like a good theory. Obviously, Obox and all Alkiliths will seek to find and destroy these gems and all stellar dragons, if it's at all possible for them to do so. Those interested in such things should consult the Spelljammer campaign books and take a look at the monstrous compendium Spelljammer Appendix Volume 2. So what is the story with Dewblex? There is a relationship with Obox. There is a relationship between all demons, really. They are all corrupted elemental stuff. They operate using the same basic rules as elementals. They are beings that are composed of a modular energy, an elemental spirit, rather than a self-contained soul. The more other demons an individual consumes, the more powerful it becomes. They also generate demonic power by breaking down existing reality and replacing it with their own. In whatever horror show the original multiverse was, everything was comprised of demonic matter and energy. The entire multiverse of the Oberith was animate and predatory and utterly chaotic. When a demon's physical form is destroyed, it dissolves into evaporating ichor and the demon spirit. That energy goes back into the maelstrom. It's like if you were just a bag of wasps that was deluded into thinking you were really a person. When your bag bursts, you have to have some intense level of ego to remain together and reform in a new bag, and not just revert back to a swarm of violently angry wasps. The smaller the demon, the less likely it is to remain intact. The more powerful a demon, the more it can exert its will not just over its own wasps, but even to all the other wasps around it. So, like moths to a flame, lesser demons are drawn to the power, destruction, and ego of the greater demons and demon lords. When the Queen of Chaos forced the Cybriacs to spawn the first regimented, recognizable Tonari, it was anathema to the very nature of demonkind. Even now, the vast majority of demons in the Abyss are random mutations, swarming mobs of assorted body forms, paying very little heed to biological laws, as revolting to elementals as they are to biological entities. Alkilith are the very pure, original recipe Tonari demon, created by the Abyss through Dewblex itself, long before the Queen of Chaos rose to some power in the war between law and chaos. Spawned for one purpose: to break down reality and spread the corruption of the Abyss across the entire multiverse. Alkilith are the disgusting and utterly loyal servants of the Faceless Lord, Dewblex. A common analogy is that they are immune cells to the plane that is its body, created either by splitting from its core or from transforming other sufficiently powerful demons. They are regarded as perhaps the most disgusting and loathsome creatures in the Abyss, as the Faceless Lord's primary means of defense and only means of attack outside of its own body. Alkilith often serve as messengers of the will of Dewblex, going where their liege cannot and investigating the few things in which it holds interest. They can't speak, but communicate telepathically at will. It's speculated that this form of communication does not necessarily indicate sentience on the part of the Alkilith itself, but rather reinforces the idea that they are mere extensions of Dewblex by serving as mobile communication relays for his primitive desires. They don't need a whole lot of intelligence to do this. Oftentimes the easiest way to accomplish their goals is just to stay undetected, tearing open demon portals and quickly moving on as carnage erupts in their wake. To quote Mordenkainen, "The appearance of an Alkilith in the world heralds a great wrongness and an imminent catastrophe. Wherever Alkiliths take root, they weaken the fabric of reality, creating a portal through which even nastier demons can invade. An Alkilith searches for an aperture such as a window or door within which it will take root, stretching its body around the opening and anchoring itself with a sticky secretion. If left undisturbed, the opening becomes attuned to the Abyss and eventually becomes a portal to that plane. Thanks to their ability to create portals, is extremely risky to ever attempt to summon this demon type. they have a chance of turning up randomly during any other demonic incursion. When a lone Alkilith forms its portal, often the first to come through are more Alkiliths, keen to magnify the breaches until a total collapse occurs, plunging yet another plane into the maelstrom, and adding yet another number to the layers of the abyss. Fresh territory to rampage through is delicious to other demons, so they tend to flock to new portals, making the urgency of closing them down that much more intense. Alkiliths are the embodiment of an abjuration wizard or high-ranking cleric's worst-case scenario, and devils will go out of their way to destroy them on sight. On the exact nature of these portals, it is the nature of the abyss that any portal linking back to it will always land that being who crossed over to the abyss in a randomly determined layer. However, this may not be true for demons themselves, and the Alkilith may have the ability to fine-tune through the plane of chaos so that the entry and exit portals remain fixed in specific places. If the Alkilith moves away, the portal will close, most of the time, but that part of the prime material plane will be weakened and demonic energy will have infected matter all around the area, creating strange, random mystical effects and sparking vile mutations in simple animal life. There may even be a chance that children born near it manifest some sorcerous powers. It's entirely up to you. Some additional abilities and traits of the Alkilith mentioned in previous D&D editions. First, they can be capable of taking on a gaseous form, becoming a 20 by 20 by 10 foot green cloud of vapor. Anyone caught in this cloud suffers the same effects as though they were in a cloud kill spell, including a DC 16 Constitution saving throw. Not even other demons are immune to the billowing fumes and overpowering corrosion of an Alkilith. They can also use an engulfing attack. If they are of a size category the same or larger than a target, they can make a simple grapple check after dashing at the victim. Engulfed victims take automatic acid damage, Constitution saving throw for half, and immediately need to make con saves or start to drown. A very big Alkilith can engulf as many targets as can occupy the same space they do, plus engulfing others doesn't impair the Alkilith's movement, apart from its amorphous squeezing through tiny spaces, of course. Their pseudopods are not just numb tentacles or bludgeoning globs, they are capable of fine manipulation and even wielding weapons. Although the average medium-sized Alkilith has an intelligence of 6, they get smarter as they get larger, and huge specimens can be spellcasters, with the ability to cast Blight, Contagion, Innovation, and Stinking Cloud, as well as spell-like powers to detect magic and dispel it. They can also cause an effect the same as a Cone of Cold, Hold Monster, Magic Circle, Wall of Ice, and Teleport. Some had the ability to quickly summon Hezrau and Chasme demons, dominated and under their control, usually to spawn in the midst of some enemy attacking them, or doing so as a surprise attack, as the Alkilith are very sneaky, certainly cunning enough to use all kinds of deception and strategy. Finally, some could also gain total control over any form of non-sapient ooze creature, directing them to move and act instead of taking actions itself, again reflecting their link to Dewblex. Unlike most other fiends, Alkiliths bring the foulness of the abyss to other realms rather than trying to lure beings of other realms into the abyss bit by bit. They aim for wide-scale corruption, desecrating sacred places, sowing terror, mutation, weakening buildings, poisoning water supplies, and empowering negative emotions to the point where their mental droning can lead to psychotic behavior and groups of confused people tearing each other limb from limb. I have been asked in the past often enough what would happen if either the demons or the forces of the Nine Hells and Celestia win and end the abyss once and for all. If the demons win, they dismantle the entire prime material plane, pulling worlds into the maelstrom to the point where nothing but the abyss exists. It's not only all that remains, it is the only means of existing. But that's not the end of it. Now, with nothing but the burnt out and corrupted devastation remaining, the demons turn on each other and any remaining forms of life. The layers become an endless war zone and more hazardous as the order of events shudders on in fits and starts. The forces of law and order become so completely corrupted, one moment to the next is no longer an even length of time, and there are whole regions that seem more like the Far Realm than any other understandable form of reality. When at some point Theros is released from his captivity, his power explodes across the maelstrom and sudden terrible destruction begins in earnest. Legions of super-empowered beholders bellow his voice as he speaks words of unmaking, powered by the extreme elemental power released moment to moment as all remaining life is drained and put to work, fueling the creation of something. Perhaps a transformation of Theros into a new overgod? Nobody knows. If the demons win, all life currently existing in the D&D multiverse is doomed. That much is certain, including the demons themselves. They are, after all, just a manifestation of Theros' own will, conjured from the memory of another lost multiverse across a distance that cannot be measured in terms of either time or distance. On the other hand, what happens if the Abyss is destroyed? Can that even happen? Yes, it can. The weakening of Obox Ob actually weakened the entire Abyss. The death of every demon lord causes demonic energy to disperse as hordes break away from the leaderless mob, and captured demonic energy is drained away. As fast as the Abyss still grows, it seems there are not that many new demon lords, or are they simply evolving? Rampant mutation is one of the hallmarks of demonic energy, but so is the breakdown of order. I think the current pecking order and elemental influenced hierarchy of the demons as Spawn, Lesser, Greater and Demon Lord is itself something the Abyss will break down into nothing but a massive demonic swarm. Like Theros switched off the TV channels and nothing is left but chaotic static on the screen. If the Blood War ends, the Devils and the Force of Celestia are successful, and the Abyss is completely purged and repatriated into the prime material plane as countless new crystal spheres popping into the drifting phlogiston, or they simply appear as new domains within other realms, as drifting world masses within the ethereal or astral planes, as fresh planet detritus in the plane of limbo, or as new chunks of reality processed and shaped by Mechanus, ejected into the plane of Alkilith, or dropped back into the endless fonts of elemental matter in the inner planes. Perhaps a brand new outer plane or planes could form, serving as a new cosmic purpose, rebalancing the multiverse. The Devils of the Nine Hells are capable of being redeemed. They could, in theory, all be reinstated as beings returning to the celestial plane of law, or perhaps, more likely, they simply turn their attention to other foes, and the battle becomes one between them and the forces of evil who grew extremely wealthy and influential off the profits of working both sides of the Blood War. The multiverse has seen stranger things happen, and everything is possible. Thanks for listening. Hit that like button if you made it this far, subscribe if you like what I do, and I'll be back with more for you very soon.